are you? No, really, who are you as an artist? Today we're talking about identity, not the kind you stamp on a business card and commit to forever, but the kind that evolves, shifts, and plays dress up like an unhinged fashion season. Let's ditch the branding rulebook and make space for curiosity, change, and creative freedom. We're two childhood best friends talking about creative mindset.
I'm Emily Hatch.
And I'm Carrie Schaefer, and this is Honestly, Dear Listener.
Honestly, dear listener.
Woo!
I'm sick of the branding first idea for artists. Who are you? What do you do? Who's your audience? You have to figure out what your identity is as an artist, or else people aren't going to know what to do with you. Who are you?
What do you like? What do you hate?
Yeah. At least with music, most of the artists I talk to are like, I'm a complex person and I talk about a lot of things. And so I don't know how to answer that question. And then a lot of us are like, well, shit, do I have to decide what I am before I'm allowed to like show up on anything and share my art? Artist identity is bullshit.
It kind of is, though.
Fight me.
Right. Change my mind. Yeah, it kind of is. If you have a corporation or you're building a business, you're right. You want to have, here's your logo and here's our mission statement. We know exactly what we're about and we know exactly what we're not about so that the customer can figure out this will fit my need or this doesn't fit my need. Nothing's coming out of left field. They know what they're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since we live in a capitalistic society.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're encouraged to be like as artists. Is like, I'm interested in country music. I'm not really, but that's just a personal thing. So of course I decided to move to Nashville. Let's say I was into country music. Like, how many people are like, stay in your lane? You do country, cool. Do country.
Yep.
I've seen so many things on social media about Beyonce winning country album of the year.
People are losing their fucking minds.
They're
Yeah.
losing it. And it's like, I can't speak. I know there's like controversy about did Jay-Z pay blah, 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 and like, so that she basically ensuring that she had enough coverage and enough playage. I don't know if that's a word, but it is now. Playage that, she would win that award. I don't know. That's not the part I'm speaking to, y'all. I'm talking about people who jump from genre to genre.
Yep. Lady Gaga, there are no rules. But the thing is that to be commercially successful in this day and age, you have to be a business and stay in the lane so that the powers that be can put money into you and say, this bitch does this. Now, what's our mission statement? Does it go with it? And then you're allowed to be an artist after that.
Right.
Maybe. And that's why a lot of people leave their labels. So, with the focus of commercial success being the ultimate as an artist, I think a lot of us put ourselves in a place where we think we have to set up all these rules for ourselves and figure all this shit out before we're even allowed to do anything. And that everything we do before we're commercially successful is probably garbage because we don't, it's preventing a lot of people from even starting anything because they're like, what's the point if I don't know what my identity is? I'm going to continue on this rant for a moment and say I met with a man who is an artist, and his father's like in the Smithsonian and was an art curator, and he showed me a lot of his paintings, and they're gorgeous, but they are so different. Like he went through eras, if you will, where he was painting certain types of paintings, and then a few years later he was painting different types of paintings. And I think when you look at visual artists, famous ones, we just think like all Picasso did was weird faces and that was his thing. And if you look at that, you would be like, okay, he's a weird face guy, right? But he made a lot of things that weren't weird face guy things.
Mhm.
And there are so many artists that are the same. It's like beautiful paintings uh, that look very Renaissance era y, like beautiful, realistic things. And then they come out with these like, it's an X in the middle of a yellow thing with some splatters on it. And that is
Mhm.
what people say who know art. So, where are we in this? And can we think of it more chunked down instead of decide who you have to be? Because, like, I've noticed with being told I have to figure this shit out that it just makes me not want to do anything and
Mhm.
get mad at myself for not knowing enough about me.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's the whole like, "Well, know thyself" quote, which I agree with, but at the same time, it's like, how do you know yourself without experimenting with yourself? How do I know how I'm going to react until I'm put in that situation? How do I know what my tastes are unless I've exposed myself to different things and I've tried different things? And then also, how do you expect to know yourself when you're fresh out of college? I'm 40 and I just now feel like I'm like, "Oh, I feel like I'm kind of scratching the surface of getting to know her being me."
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I've had to go through so many years of like of being put in different scenarios and learning about like, oh, this is the way my body reacts when this stimulus comes along. And that's okay. We want to be so concrete. At least I do. And so, once again, black and white. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is who I am over here, and this is who I'm not. This is what I like, and I have always liked and will always like. And this is what I do not like. And I'm not about an anti and hate. Like it's so just like one box here and one box here. And if I
Mm-hmm.
can't put a thing into either one of the boxes, then I'm like, short circuit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's how I've functioned for a really, really long time. And I'm just now sort of suggesting to that binary system of like, maybe this is too restrictive. Maybe, and especially for artists, we have to have spectrums and we have to have freedom and nuance and room to
Mm.
explore and to move.
So, Carrie, you and I were talking just, was it yesterday,
Mhm.
about a concept that I really liked. Okay, I don't like the term eras because Taylor Swift feels like she owns that term. Not she feels like that. I feel like she owns that term. Um, what about you were suggesting seasons,
Mm.
which sounds really like spiritually, but the way you said it, I loved that. Like fashion has like this season
Mhm.
we're doing this. And so it like every year it changes, every year it evolves, and then it goes per the season or quarter, really, like
Mhm.
winter, spring, summer, and fall, you know. Um, and I love that idea because it's
Mhm.
like I'm giving myself permission to be in this season. And if you're releasing music, that could be like, I'm going to release a 3-song EP, or the next couple singles are going to be this season that I'm in right now.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to try a new season when I'm ready. Um,
Yeah.
Because for most of us, we're not going to be, this sounds like mean, but I think it's good. We're not going to be in front of Sony being required to state our case in branding. We
Mhm.
are just trying to make music and see where our people are.
Mhm.
And so, what if you kicked out the legs of you must be and you must figure and you must identify and you must, and just be
Mhm.
like, this season, I'm
Mhm.
going to be for myself in my like, I'm complex. This is my bad bitch era.
Mm.
Accept the complexities of me in this way that I am currently wanting to make music.
Right.
That feels so nice. It's not like, so what are you?
Uh-huh.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I write all kinds of songs, sometimes sad, sometimes piano,
Piano.
sometimes rocky, some like, I sing. Like, it is so hard to answer that question. I could show people what I'm doing right now.
Mhm.
It just feels so much less restrictive. What do
Yes.
you think about that? Does is there a world, because I'm, over here talking about music mostly.
Mhm.
Is there a world where, like, you're writing, this feels good for you, or, like, how does that apply to people writing?
Oh, yeah. I think for me, seasons kind of feel like, and it doesn't have to be like this for everyone. The point here is freedom, open, go. If your mind wants to take you someplace, go with it. Let's go.
Mm,
For me, it's about questions I'm asking and curiosity. As far as writing goes, I'm in my era, my era of challenging high control structures.
mm,
Um, Both because of how I was raised in a high control religion and because of the current situation we find ourselves in the United States. I'm interested in playing out those themes
mm,
in a way that puts characters in the middle of those situations because I'm working out all of those things in my own brain. I get to play with people.
mhm.
Not in real life necessarily, but, like, my characters, yeah. And
Yeah,
as and it becomes even more interesting the more shit you put out there for them to walk through. But it's them walking through it, but I am, to some degree, slogging through that with them, trying to figure out what the hell was my childhood. And I don't know my next season of where I am going. I don't think I'll always be there. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Maybe I will want to walk down a different theme all I know is that's kind of what's interesting to me right now. So I'm going to follow that. But I'm not sitting there before I write and being like, okay, this season I'm only going to write about high control things. And like it's not like that. It's happening more organically and
mm,
I'm just noticing, huh, that's interesting that I wrote about that and I wrote about that and I wrote about that and the common themes are this.
mm,
Huh. It's almost a map back to myself. It's like a treasure map. Like what themes did these 3 short stories have in common?
mm,
Huh. And it kind of shines a light on what's going on in my psyche. Sometimes
mm,
things I'm not even aware of that,
mhm,
it's like dreaming. Like we work out so much of our stuff in the times when our creativity is maybe at its most unbridled, when we're asleep, where
mm,
we're not controlling so hard. And
mhm,
so that's kind of how I think it shows up for me. I'm definitely in that era. And I don't know if I'll ever be like, okay, that's the end of that era and I'm going to move on to a different one, but I'll know once I look at the work,
mhm.
that something is different.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense, and I love it because you're able to free yourself from the rules
Mhm.
and then just make what happens and then decide what container that goes in afterwards. And
Mhm.
I that's the goal, right? I think for me this discovery is so freeing cuz then I can just be like I do a lot of overthinking beforehand to be like, what is
Mm.
this? What is it supposed to be? Do you think it should be this? What about this? Why would people? And then I end up
Mm.
being like, nobody's going to like it. Just stop. And so
Yeah.
if we can, for those of our listeners out there who are that person who have to build a case as to why we can't, and one of those cases is, I don't know what this is. It doesn't match what I think I'm supposed to do, so I'm not going to do anything. Uh, this is such a freeing idea to be like, oh no, you can do whatever you want, and then
Mhm.
figure it out after because you're not sending this to a label.
Right. I mean, like, look at all the people that have gone with labels that have in their biographies or their documentaries or like the label wanted me to do this. The label wanted me to be this. And I didn't want that. And so I chose differently, and I'm so glad that I did because it opened up all these doors for me that it wouldn't have happened. Now, could it end up the other way? Could the label be like, "Bye"? Well, sure. I mean, there's
Mhm.
like you were saying earlier, there's tons of artists that are on purpose dropping their labels because they're too restrictive.
Mhm.
And yeah, but I mean, labels exist to make money first
Yeah.
and foremost. Art does not exist first and foremost to make money. It can.
Ooh,
I mean, or maybe I mean, maybe that's a controversial statement. I don't know. I personally don't believe it does.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I didn't mean also to be too restrictive on you're not pitching to a label. So anybody out there who's like, "God, I want to have a label." What I'm
Mhm.
saying is act like you don't and
Mhm.
explore your shit first because there are
Mhm.
a lot of people that also are getting to talk to labels or are doing that thing and then they get locked into something because they thought that was what they were supposed to and to do and had to do. And
Mhm.
then they're finding, like you said, this is not for me.
Mhm.
I mean, some of my favorite artists are like, fuck my label. I'm not doing
Mhm.
that. I mean, you know, the song Love Song by Sarah Bareilles
Mhm.
was to the label.
Mm.
I'm not going to write you a love song because they were like, we need a love song. And she's like, I'm not doing that.
I'm not gonna write you a love song because you asked for it because you need one. Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, Sarah, go.
What a babe.
I know. Yeah, to some degree, this also applies to, the thing that we're trying to do, our endeavor together, which is, write a show.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because how you approach a thing really does matter. Like, we were like, "Here's what we want the themes to be." It kinda needs to fit into these themes, and then when
Hmm.
that didn't feel right, you and I were like, "What if we just let things swim up? What if we
Hmm.
ask our brains, what story do you wanna tell?"
Hmm.
W And then things started, like, things start swimming up and you go, "Okay, I don't know where this is going, and I don't know how this is connecting." But then and we haven't gotten to this point, but I would imagine that at some point you have a body of work and you go, "How do all of these stories connect?"
Hmm.
Carrie's stories, Emily's stories, all the different stories within both, writers. How do they connect and how do we make a body that contains these these things?
Themes.
Yeah,
Yep.
these themes.
Yep. Instead of being like, you have to write a show about this. Now write your stories and make them be this.
Right.
And that feels so much better because for me, I was preventing myself from writing because I was like, well, this doesn't fit in the rules, so I can't do
Mm,
it. You know, the
the
rules.
rules.
This is our theme lately that there are no rules. The rule is there are no rules. Um,
Yeah.
and because deciding that you have limitations and rules on your creativity limits you.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of us will give up before
Mhm.
we even start.
Right. And I'm not saying, because there are things that come across the desk of our minds that maybe I don't want to release to the public.
Hmm.
That's okay.
Yep.
Because in my mind, I automatically think, well, that's a waste if I'm not going to release it, if I'm not going to put it someplace. This is never going to see the light of day, quote
Mm.
unquote. Then what's the point of even writing it? But I wonder if I couldn't have written what I have that I plan on releasing without making that thing first.
Yeah. And also, like, art for the sake of art, because your heart, this also circles back to a lot of stuff we talk about. Your heart needs to make things.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they never see the light of day. So there's no waste
Mm.
because you're making what your heart needs to get out. Like,
Yes.
so
Oh, yes.
it's never a waste.
Use everything, even if even if that thing you don't use in a public setting. I
Mhm.
love that. I love this idea that nothing is wasted. And that can apply to so many things. That can apply to crappy things that happen to you. Like for instance, how we grew up. Like I fully intend not to waste all that pain.
Mm.
You know? You redeem something by using it eventually.
Mhm. No pain wasted.
That's right.
No good little experience wasted,
That's right.
even if you're making it for yourself. It needs it needs to come out of you. If you have the urge to do it, you should do it
Yeah.
as it applies to art.
Yesterday we also talked about this idea of dress up and
Yeah.
how I mean, like when you're a kid, like whenever I went over to a friend's house and they had some kind of a costume, like a princess costume or like a cat costume, or I was not allowed to play with witch costumes, but like if I was allowed to play with a witch costume, that would have been the
Mhm.
first costume I would have picked. Um,
Mhm.
and I was so excited to like get the costume on my body and like the hat and like embody that character. And I still, even though I'm 40, I still freaking feel that way. Like I go to a thing and somebody's wearing a costume and I'm immediately like, I want to be in that costume. Like I want to know what that's like. And it's yeah, it's the costume, but it is the costume makes it easier for me to embody the character the costume is representing. And
Mm.
I like that exploration of what if I could be a different person? What if I could take on a different way of thinking or talking or whatever it is? And that's always had an appeal for me. And I
Mm.
wonder if this whole idea of identity and kind of like we get so serious about like, oh, our mission. Wow, my mission is to write this book and it's gonna be so good and it's gonna blah 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 and it's gonna set, feminist theory ahead by 40 years, you know? I mean, and that's not bad. I'm not
Mm-mm.
saying that that's bad. But like we get so serious about the work instead of what if it's more like all you're doing is playing dress up
Mm.
where I have a song and here's the feeling or the vibe of this the character, even if the character's you, just a you in different circumstances or whatever
Mhm.
it is. And you're playing the song, you're performing the song as dress up. You know, I want to know what that feels like. Or if like I
Mm.
said earlier, if you're writing a character and the character's working something out that you yourself need to also work out, you're putting on the character. You're
Mhm.
playing dress up. And I kind of think that that applies to all art. You know,
Mm.
maybe all of our eras are us being like, I want to put that on now. Now I want
Mhm.
to take that off and I want to put that on. Or maybe I want to put elements of this costume with this costume together.
Mhm.
Maybe I want to mix and match it. Like what happens when I do that? That to me, that takes a lot of the pressure off and
Mhm.
increases the play factor.
Absolutely. Yeah, the play part is so important. I think to me it's like, okay, I listen to and am in rooms with people talking about artist identity all the time and like don't don't be anything other than yourself and but ourselves are lots of characters. There's so many, like depending on what you subscribe to, like parts within us, so many different types of ideas and characters in our heads.
Mhm.
So I like bringing those ideas out and those characters inside me out and trying them on. So it's like,
Mhm.
what if I bring out the most, like for me right now, the most like bad bitch, this is what I need right now.
Mm.
Bring out the bad bitch sexy, yeah, I'm all the things
Mhm.
person and let her try that on for a song or two. Let that be what we're doing. And then maybe sad girl energy is like, okay, let's bring her out and try her on for a while and write a song from her perspective for a while. That is a really exciting thing to do. Like, let's dive all the way into that
Mhm.
version of myself. Um, and not being like, well, I am kind of like trying to get across a character that's only this. Like,
Mhm.
well, that's okay too, but like, I wonder Lizzo is I love Lizzo. So Lizzo's coming out with a new era right now. I'm not sure what it's going to be. She literally was like the old me is like bye bitch, she wrote in spray paint. And I'm like I wonder what her dress up's going to be next. Because I have wondered with her and like Queen Herbie, do they ever get sick of being everyone's champion of
Mm.
positivity and self-love? Like,
Mhm.
they're not that all the time because they're human beings. So, like, I'm excited to see where that goes
Mhm.
next. And it inspires me to be like, what character am I dressing up as in this
Mhm.
song?
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty exciting.
When I'm approaching creativity, if something or an identity or an outside influence or whatever is making me feel more constrained in a box, formulaic, binary, all those words which are restrictive,
Mm-hmm.
I want to open that up. I want to choose openness and space and freedom and
Mm-hmm.
spectrum and all of those, whatever action is going to embody those feelings, I want to go towards,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not the constriction. And so my identity, I can identify even within myself. It's how I view myself, it's how I talk to myself, not just from the outside in, from the inside out. If
Mm-hmm.
I can talk to myself and encourage myself and be like, no, even in the language, so much of my language is it's either this or this when I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking. And I catch myself and I go, I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I inherited. I don't want that anymore. I choose something different. I choose freedom. I choose all directions,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
just not the, you know, if you're listening, you can't see what I'm doing.
It's not the fart.
Right. It's not the fart, not the fart sound. I'm making like a tiny little box with my hands,
Smush it. Smush it down.
smushing that box down.
Now, for those of you who maybe are like, this is my thing and I'm stoked about it, that is fucking awesome.
Awesome.
Like, follow that and be like, I know who I am. Great. Know also this you are allowed to change
Yes.
whenever, however, or never. Like, just putting that out there. The whole point is allow, welcome, be curious, play. Don't fart sound yourself into a box. Okay?
Absolutely. Yes. Give yourself more options than less options.
And people in your life can help that you trust to be like, great, ooh, yeah, like, and encourage you. There's not a world where you're going to make too many things and then be like totally stupid for doing it. Like,
Mhm.
people in your life gather around you, encourage you, help you with direction that you trust. You have freedom to do and be whatever you want. Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Emily,
Carrie,
is it that time?
it's time to get out of here.
Yeah. Oh, and hey, everybody. Made a couple of changes. We've migrated over to the Spotify app. That is where our podcast is hosted now. And so if you go over there, you might notice all of our videos for our episodes are up on Spotify. And you can also watch them on YouTube, of course, like you've always been able to. If you would like, we would appreciate if you went to Apple Podcast, looked us up, honestly, dear listener, and gave us a 5-star review. That would help get this podcast out to other dear listeners that will hopefully enjoy it as well.
Yeah, and if you were thinking about going to give us a review that was less than 5 stars, we encourage you to not do that. Okay?
Thank y'all so much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Honestly, dear listener.
Woo!